my time.
I want to say a big good evening going out to each and every single one of you tonight, going out all across the world. You're locked into another edition of Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. In a very few short moments, I'm going to introduce my guest today.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
And today's subject matter on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today is institutionalized racism.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole...
Do you know, over the years, so many people have thought that this racism thing, this racist thing, is dead, buried. The world is a better place to live in. There's more freedom and diversity. We've got people living in different... we've even got Polish people in the Caribbean.
Already did my time.
But there are some parts of the world, many parts of the world,
Already did my time. I paid for my
where racism is just as alive as it ever was.
Already did my time.
Tonight we're going to be sharing some stories with Dwayne Davis.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Looking at some issues that really matter.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you.
This is going to be one of these things where people would prefer us to be talking about anything else but this.
Shit. Now sit back and think.
And there are some people
The life I
who ain't going to want to hear what we have to say tonight.
brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was no.
But as I say,
Me and Billy
Black Lives Matter for a reason.
much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd shoot you up and spit you out like a real alligator.
I'm a 1961 born child,
The opening statements are going on
born in the midst of the movement of the Black Power.
in prison.
I remember SUS. I remember Stop and Search.
Already did my time.
I've been charged, convicted and jailed
Already did my time.
for offenses I did not commit, simply because of the color of my skin.
Paid for my crime.
So I know what it's like.
Did my time.
And maybe here in the UK, we are a lot better off than they are in many other countries around the world. But that still don't mean it's great.
Paid for my crime.
And I'm not going to sit down here and play silent, because silence makes me complicit to the crime.
I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote.
The place to be is www.worldjamglobalradio.com,
In the pen.
or you can get us on TuneIn, which is available on all smartphones.
Not a man I couldn't beat. I was good.
Follow us on Twitter,
Very quick on my
Facebook,
swimming in women.
WhatsApp.
Was all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole
Big good evening going out to you
range. I'm a
across the world.
gun in my
This is World Jam Global Radio. My name is Kervin Julian. Tonight's program is Institutionalized Racism on Issues Today.
this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already
Wherever you are, if you got something that you want to add or contribute to the show, then you can get us on www.worldjamglobalradio.com, or follow us on Twitter at Issues
I paid for my
Today Radio. Email us at issuestodayradio@gmail.com,
dealer. Sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got
or you can just post it on the Issues Today Facebook page,
to do. That's why
World Jam Global Radio page, and we just get right back to you.
I must admit I was
Fully interactive.
shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd shoot you up and spit you out like a
Don't forget, if you want to get into the chat room, you can post your questions in there also.
already did my time.
Or if you want to, you could just kick back, put your feet back, relax, and listen to me and Dwayne get it on.
I paid for my crime.
'Cause we're going to be going in deep.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Well.
We always tend to find that people want to be shy. They want to hide. They don't want to make themselves known in the chat room or whatever. But man, if this is something that matters to you, if this is something that you want to talk about, you want to get some questions in, feel free to contribute. Very big good evening going out to each and every single one of you. Don't forget, the show will be posted via YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, and all other social platforms once we are through.
Heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
That's correct.
This day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
World Jam Global Radio, this is Clarity.
Without no further ado, let me introduce to you to my guest tonight, the one and only Mr. Dwayne Davis. Good evening, Dwayne.
How you doing? Everybody calls me
Shorty?
Shorty.
Well, then I'm going to call you Shorty tonight, too. Okay, Shorty, do us a favor, my friend. Before we just go into the matter, tell our listeners just a little bit about you.
I'm a community activist and the founder of the Baltimore Block here in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm also an independent filmmaker. I'm a restaurant owner, and I'm a sole proprietorship. I'm a lot of things in the community. I work with the homeless community here a lot. I'm a unpaid lobbyist in Annapolis and Washington, D.C. I advocate for homelessness and inmates and prisoners' rights and related subjects to that matter. I fight against Jim Crow justice and the war on drugs, which is a war on the black community. I do a lot of things. If you Google me or dogpile me, you'll see a lot of things that I do that the media don't want you to know.
And that's kind of where we cross paths, right? Because I came across some of your posts and began to take an interest and just watch, because that's what I kind of do sometimes. But these things matter to me, and institutionalized racism is a theme for a show that I've wanted to do for some time. But it's very rare to find people who are brave and courageous enough to step up onto the platform and leave themselves open to this type of conversation. It matters to me. When did you first start becoming an activist?
My first day of activism, I started a program in 1985. It was called Shorties. It's a self-help organization for the redevelopment and re-education of the young. I did it in the 1980s because of the war on drugs. If you look at my history, I used to sell drugs. I used to be a drug dealer. I used to do a lot of things, negative things in the community. But I started having kids and realizing that I couldn't raise my kids if I was locked up, and I couldn't raise my kids if I was dead. And the war on drugs was setting our community to dismantle our family structure. So in 1985, I started the program called Shorties. The people in my area where I was from didn't want me to have that program because the war on drugs was enslaving the people. It was the reinstitutionalization of slavery. So on March the 3rd, you can look this up too. You can go get on your computers right now, whenever you get ever, go on the computers and look up at the state of Illinois versus Dwayne Davis, 1986. And what I did is I turned in guns and drugs to the police at the police station. I turned in guns and drugs to the police at the police station, and it got me 3 years in the penitentiary. It's not what I did, it's how I did it. I turned in a .308 Remington rifle with a scope and a handgun to the police, and I took my sons and my daughters with me and said I wanted to stop selling drugs. They didn't lock me up that day. But then on February the 21st, prior to my court date on March the 3rd, police officers, and I had my daughter's birthday she was 4 years old. Her was my oldest daughter's birthday. Had a birthday party, and the police came to the party uninvited. Some detectives from the Drug Enforcement Agency in our county, in Lake County, Illinois. And they put their hands on my daughter and said it'd be a shame if their father wouldn't live to, just making their little idle threats. So I got pissed off and I got mad, but I know that you just can't go up and shoot a police officer. So what I did is I came up with a program by turning in guns and drugs, and I started turning in guns and drugs to the police. On February, the day after that, I turned in some marijuana and cocaine to the police at the City Hall. Robert Sabanjan was the mayor. I turned in 0.2 of a gram of cocaine and 0.2 of a gram of marijuana. I wanted to show the power of drugs that it was in my community. Because with cocaine and marijuana, I could buy whatever I wanted. I could buy guns, I could buy sex, I could buy favors. All right? I've been selling drugs from 1977 to 1986. Never went to jail, never had no problems. I didn't go and get no problems till I wanted to stop selling drugs, when I wanted to reform my community. And I had 300 members of my Shorties program that were willing to do this. They were gang members from the Vice Lords. They were GDs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I come from the North. So I had gang members that was willing to quit, but they're not going to quit if they can't see a return, if they can't see a trade-off. You feel me?
I'm with you.
So I call it my Malcolm X moment. I turned in the guns. I turned in the drugs that, and you all can look up this case too. Like I said, it's all on court record. Everything I'm telling you can be verified through legal means. Nobody has ever done this. I turned in the drugs, and I had a 1977 Lincoln Continental, a gold Lincoln Continental, and I parked it in 2 parking spaces, and I told the police I'll pay them $50 an hour if they let the car sit there until I could speak to the police or the mayor about the war on drugs and how it was affecting my community. It was just deteriorating it. So instead of them letting them do that, instead of them doing that, they locked me up, charged me with possession of cocaine, possession of marijuana. It was only 0.2 of a gram. It wasn't really nothing. You know what I'm saying? But they charged me anyway. So on March 3rd was my court date. Between that date and March 3rd, the police kept harassing me, sticking guns into my head, threatening me, antagonizing me. And I'm not the one to be played with. I'm not a fearful person. Let's put it that way. So on March the 3rd, that was my court date. I called the police at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I said, I'm coming. And I had a 12-gauge shotgun, a .357 Magnum, a 308 a 308 automatic, and a .25 automatic. And I shot the town up for 45 minutes. I walked from my house to the courthouse. The police never beat me. They never shot me. They never tased me. They never did nothing to me. I emptied all them guns on my way to the courthouse. Got a church named Jesus Name, and right across the street from the church is the county jail. That was my crossroads right there. Now, when I got locked up, and they won't tell you this either, I escaped from jail the same night because they was planning to kill me. My client list was like realtors, police officers, and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? That ain't something that they wanted it in court record or nobody telling. So the way I escaped from jail is they put me in the cell and they was going to try to say that I committed suicide. So what I did is I took off all my clothes and I started acting erratic. And then I hyperventilated and locked my muscles up. The ambulance driver that came to pick me up was Raymond Barnes. Raymond Barnes. Raymond Barnes was one of my clients. He used to buy drugs from me. So when Raymond seen me, I told Raymond to take me to Downey VA Medical Center instead of St. Therese Hospital because the police don't have any jurisdiction on federal property. I'm a United States veteran. In 1977, I joined the Navy. I was an administrative assistant to the engineering officer on the USS Mississippi. In 1977, that was Iran-Contra. That was the war on drugs when it was created, when America traded drugs for guns to finance their illegal wars in different countries. I was taught how to transport marijuana, transport cocaine. I was taught how to do this while I was in the Navy. You can look at my Navy record. I got charged with cocaine. I got charged with loan shark, and I got charged with all this criminal behavior because they taught me how to do it. I was 17, dude. So from, like I said, from 77 to the time I got locked up, I had permission from my government to do illegal shit. Excuse my French, to do illegal things. And my record speaks for itself. All right. Now, when I shot up the town and I got the Downey VA Medical Center, I stayed there for like 2-3 days. They didn't charge me for 3 days because they couldn't get me. I was on the VA medical. I was not in their jurisdiction. So they locked me up after I left the medical facility. I went to court. I lost my case, but if you look at the case, I won it on appeal on a constitutional violation. The violation is self-representation. That was my first encounter with activism. Ignorance of the law, excuse of the law, knowledge of the law is priceless. That's why lawyers get paid and black people end up in jail. We have to depend on public defenders instead of a paid lawyer. So I was intelligent enough to know that the law would defend me if I say I wanted to represent myself. Represent myself meaning that they would have to admit evidence. And the jury, and having a trial by jury, means that the jury would have to decide my fate, not a judge. And that's the key. To present evidence in front of a jury to decide your cases instead of letting the public defender misrepresent the truth and send you to jail. Most cases in America, look who went to jail is the ones that were represented by public defenders. Everybody can't afford a Murphy, a Brown, a Dwight Pettit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We gotta tie it with the economics that our pockets entitle us to. So that was my first encounter of activism, and I'm still doing the same thing. I'm fighting the war on drugs. If they declared a war on drugs, that means that we're the enemy combatants. So that war on drugs was a war on my community. But now you got these opiate laws that are going past because that war on drugs was affecting the white community, but you can't incarcerate white people like you do black people. If you look at American history, Dred Scott says that blacks have no rights in which white America respects. The war on drugs reinvents Dred Scott legally.
Do you know, from where I'm sitting and what I'm hearing, right? So there you are. You've come back from the Navy. Now you're ready to make a stand for your community. But in the middle of that, because I also want to try and get in the middle of that, how did your community stand with you, even in the midst of all of this?
When I was selling drugs, I was like you seen on TV. It was like Scarface. It was like Robin Hood. We was living a life.
Yeah.
I took people in the community. I didn't sell drugs to kids. I didn't sell drugs to pregnant women. I sell drugs to 18 and over. We had rules back when we were selling drugs. We don't have no rules no more. Drugs been in our community since you brung us here from slavery. You gave us cocaine and weed in the cotton fields, and when we died, you just used our bodies as manure to enrich your soil. We had no worth. We ain't got no value then, and we ain't got no value now. I was permitted to do whatever I wanted to do in my community when I was selling drugs. I was only viewed bad negatively from the police when I wanted to stop selling drugs. You feel me? You can go to that community right now to this day and just say my name and ask anybody in that community that know me from the 80s and the 90s and now and hear what they got to say about me. My actions speak for themselves.
Yeah. I hear that. So what was you witnessing in your community, the stranglehold that drugs held on your community that made you want to stop?
I was watching what the drugs was doing to people. People was doing crazy stuff. I mean, they was like the OJ said, people were robbed from their mothers. People was robbing, they was stealing, they was killing, they was doing anything. Drive-bys, it was shoot 'em up. It was a wild, wild west, like Kool Moe Dee and them said. And when rap music started coming out, and that was the poison that killed our community. It was like what alcohol did to the Indians.
Many will say that because of the drugs that you dealt or people like yourself, and let me just say on record, I totally understand where you're coming from, and at some point I'll share some of my past and my history with you. But I lived a very, very similar life here in the UK as an OG, a dealer, a user as well, and spent many years in jail doing similar things. But I came to my senses. In fact, I've only been to my senses over the last 12 years or so. 2005 was when I turned my life around, and prior to that I had a 36-year history of doing all sorts of things from a child. So I understand where you're coming from, and it gets to the point where you realize, I felt to myself I was turning women's children into prostitutes and thieves just by selling them what I was selling, and I couldn't do that anymore. But did you also notice just how much, because I heard you say it yourself, just how much while you were dealing and while you were that the police would give you room, because they could have caught you any time, right? It wasn't you weren't as clever as you'd like to think you were. You weren't at liberty because you were smart.
No, I was smart enough to know the law that what they could and couldn't do to me. The police never caught me with no drugs on me. I never touched drugs. They taught me how to do this, so I knew what to do and what not to do. They never caught me with nothing. I mean, they raided my house plenty of times. They did plenty of things to me. I had shootings and all that kind of stuff. I never went to jail for that.
But they never wanted to stop you. And do you understand why?
Because I was making money for somebody other than myself. You know what I'm saying?
And that's where the real root of racism starts. We're in the midst of that drugs war, right?
Look at all the senators and congressmen that got caught up with saying no to drugs, but then you caught them smoking in the bathrooms, or you caught them at airports, or you caught them with this and you caught them with that, or their kids got caught with it. These drugs that you outlawed in my community are running rampant in yours. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying yours in the white community. You permitted me to do that because these communities, these investors, these real estate moguls, corporations have a vested interest in the drug war. You deplete a whole community with this. That means that you have people that were working community go to straight up drug addicts and dope fiends, so they lose their houses. You know what I'm saying? They can't pay their bills, so now you repossess the properties. So now you flip the community, the gentrification. You know what I'm saying? There's always these different high crime areas that you mark, so now you can enslave and incarcerate more people. Look what Governor O'Malley did with stop and frisk from 2004 to 2012, and when the Department of Justice had to come step in because they were so rampant and raggedy with the distribution of justice on black and Hispanic people in Baltimore, Maryland. You had to have a riot to make them stop and pay attention to the wrongs that they was doing.
I mean, I suppose your knowledge, information, and feelings were only confirmed when you went to prison, right?
Yeah, I went to prison, and I went to prison in 1986. I went for 3 years. I had 3 years, but I won my appeal after I got out of jail. So, as of this day, that conviction in 1986, I'm innocent of all those charges. While I was in jail, all jail does is just sharpens your skills. It's not there to rehabilitate you, because they take everything that's going to rehabilitate you out. You have no schooling, no job training, none of this. So what you supposed to do while you in jail? It's hard to survive in jail. You feel me?
Yeah.
So just the fact living in jail is a fight every day. And that wasn't part of the sentence that the judge gave you neither.
Did you find yourself playing a supportive role in jail as well?
I fit in where I get in. When I was in jail, I knew how to read and write. I was kind of an intellectual. I was smart. When I got to jail, I got my GED. As soon as I went to jail, I got my GED. Then I started reading law books and studying the law. And I prepared my case for the appellate division. I helped my lawyers make my case for the appellate division. And in the process, I would do other people's cases while I was in jail, so I became a jailhouse lawyer.
And so then your understanding or even your reading of cases firsthand became even more, right?
Yeah, because all the inmates in there got their own cases and their own whatevers. But if you look at that, all right, like I said, stop and frisk with Governor O'Malley. You stop and frisk X amount of people, and you did it over and over again. You charged them with the same stuff. It was just like repetition. So it was a planned action. That didn't happen here in Baltimore. It happened in Illinois. It happened in New York. Any major city where you have a high density of black population, you did that strictly toward black people. Those cases, those laws that were implemented, it was designed for our failure.
And we witnessed that here in the UK as well. In fact, and I can't remember what year it was outlawed and banished, but that stop and search, or you call it stop and frisk, but it was stop and search. It was outlawed here in the UK for the very same reason, when it got exposed that over 98% of the people that were stopped and searched were black. 98%.
If you look at it now, they still doing it. They just doing it in a different way. They call it felony search warrants or this, that, and the other. And like you said, when they started this war on terror and stuff, they used that word, terrorist activity or terrorism or something like that, to throw in there. Black people ain't terrorists, man, and we don't got no relationship with terrorism. And as a matter of fact, most terrorists, we dying at the police hands more than we dying from a terrorist hand.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So black people in the black community, we don't identify with the threat of ISIS. Our main threat is when we open our front door and we see the Baltimore.
I'm laughing, but I'm laughing because it's so funny. It's unreal, but it's real. I mean, I'm not frightened when I go out on the streets. I'm not frightened if I get on a bus. I'm not frightened if I get on a plane. I'm not frightened if I get. But I'd be scared if I got surrounded by a group of police cars. As that's how you're finding it stateside, right?
Yes, and that's what they're doing. If you look at most cities, and then it started with 9/11. In 9/11, they started. Well, now we're going to start felons from getting jobs in federal facilities. We're going to do background checks. So now everybody that had a felon or ever been charged with something, you just knocked them out of the workforce for any upward mobility. You just enslaved them economically and socially, correct?
Correct.
So now where you going to go from there? You came from 9/11 to now where you're doing militarization of the black communities and their high density black communities. You're bringing in Jeeps, Hummers, battering rams. You're making this like this is the Gaza Strip of Palestine with the militarization in the black community by the police department, and you're justifying it through the fear and the war on drugs.
Is that militarization turning into an even greater provocation and a reason for anger and resentment?
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
And how are people responding to that?
They angry. They waiting for another. It's just like a fuse. What's going to be the next Freddie Gray? What's going to be the next thing that sets off a riot? Who's going to be the next Trayvon Martin? Who's going to be the next Tyrone West? Who's going to be the next Anthony Anderson? Who's going to be the next unarmed black person in America killed by a police and accused of something they didn't do?
You know, we thought it really got to a real head with Sandra Bland. And right at that moment, everything about, unlawful killing and police brutality started to get blown up quite quickly. And I've often said on this show that here in the UK, we are very much restricted to that kind of information as far as the news is concerned. So we rely on social media to report these things, and a lot of people rely on shows like this and people like myself who are interested or show a passion in these things to bring it to the forefront. But only, I think it was the Laquan McDonald case where the Supreme Court ordered them to release the police video cam, body cam information. Right. Did that actually become news here in the UK?
Well,
go on.
They my case is here in Maryland, right? If you Google Dwayne G. Davis, I've been accused of terrorism in 2 different states, all right? In Illinois and in Maryland. I have been charged with terrorism in 3 different occasions. And I've yet been, proven to be a terrorist. And you know what? I had a videotape and a video camera when I did everything I did. And in both states, the state police, the city of Waukegan police and the city of Baltimore County police and the state's attorney took that videotape and refused to return it and show it. But you can go on YouTube right now and see exactly what I did on February the 7th, 2011. And it shows that I did not commit a terrorist activity. I was found innocent of all the charges because I defended myself and I used social media and videos, because mainstream media is not going to work for black people in America. Mainstream media is a political propaganda machine that demonizes black people. If you're in the UK, you never hear nothing positive about black people. Black people got cancer. Black people got sickle cell. But the only thing you're going to hear about black people is we raped somebody, we shot somebody, or we did something crazy. Black people have scientific contributions to America. We are other than Black History Month, we contribute to America. But your America's not going to show you the positive in the black community. So if we don't take control of the narrative and use social media and use our cell phones and create these alternative sources for information to be distributed, then you're going to continue to believe the lies that mainstream media tells you.
Do you know, here's the thing for me. Most common sense white folk worldwide know that the projection of black people by white media and the white oppressors are not real, right? That's not who we are. They've gone to school with us. They've stood up in queues with us. They've been at restaurants with us. They've played sports with us. Most of the white folk worldwide do not subscribe to this image portrayed of black people. So why is it that we still have an overpowering oppressor if the world is not harmonious to that view?
We still got it because we have a social economic divide. All right, we got the haves and the have-nots, and for the have-nots to remain in power, they got to keep this divide going. They don't want black people and white people and Hispanic people to get along. If you notice in America, the immigration thing, what they're doing with Donald Trump with the immigration thing, that's make America hate again. That ain't making America great again. And that's what made America great, is their hate. You feel me?
The thing is, once you start spreading fear and propaganda, it's the one tool, right, that will keep people divided. And when you imagine that over the years, different cultures have started to gel together differently and better, it's a real fear for those who have power to think that we could actually amount to something and achieve and accomplish the dreams of making peace worldwide. So it's in somebody's interest that there is no peace. It's in somebody's interest that there is no unity. And it's in somebody's interest that there is no harmony worldwide. But how do we as a people allow that to continue? By believing the propaganda, subscribing to it, and joining the hatred. Are we not our own worst enemy?
No, we're not our own worst enemy, and it's not that we doing it. We become what you call a Stockholm syndrome. We identify with our captors, or we'll believe whatever we see on TV. We got a majority of people that don't believe in it, but the ones that the media portrays, you know what I'm saying? Because they control the narrative, they control the lens. Here goes an example, all right? I got locked up for doing exactly what you're saying. I want to show that we can get along. All right, I had a store on Falls Road. I own the store. I'm a private chef and a caterer. I had my own restaurant. The restaurant was owned by a black man in a predominantly white community, and I mean rich white community, like judges, lawyers, politicians, you know, Senator Kelly, ex-retired legislative people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. These were $1 million people where Kevin Plank live at, out in Sagamore. You know what I'm saying? All these people know me. David Smith from Fox 45, Sinclair Broadcasting. These are their houses. That's the community that I was servicing. So now that a black man owns this restaurant, how is this black man going to treat white people when they come in this restaurant? And that was one of the questions that I was posing. And while I was doing it, I was videotaping how I would treat my customers. You know what I'm saying? So to desensitize them, I asked them, I said, you like me out here in your community, but if you see me on North Avenue, how would you treat me? Would you still call me shorty? Would you clutch your purse? Would you duck your head? Would you even acknowledge that you knew me if you seen me outside of this environment in this area? You know what I'm saying? And most of them would say, yeah. Most of them followed me everywhere I've been going. You know what I'm saying? I got a following for my barbecue because food is one common denominator that ain't racist. You feel me?
Absolutely.
So now we using food. All right. They don't care who cooked the food. They know that the food tastes good. But if you eating, you can have a conversation, correct?
Absolutely.
So now we created a dialogue. So now we start talking about issues that affect our communities, correct?
Yep.
So now I got white people talking about black issues and they don't realize that they're doing it, correct?
I'm with you. I'm following you.
So now I'm controlling the narrative without them knowing. I got a white dude on there look like Ernest D. Bass from Mayberry. And you know who his hero is?
No, go on, tell me.
His hero is Malcolm X.
Oh.
You feel me?
You get to find these things out when you engage.
Yes. Conversation in the community. You feel me?
I'm feeling
so
it.
now I took it one step further. Stupidity sells, right? The more dumber, the more odder, the more out of the way, more people pay attention, right? We're not going to have another Martin Luther King in America. We're not going to have another Malcolm X in America. They're not going to permit a black man to have that type of power in the black community. You feel me? They'll give you all the Al Sharptons that you can handle. They'll give you all the Jesse Jackson Juniors that you can handle. But that's as good as it's gonna get. You're not gonna have nobody that's gonna galvanize the community like Malcolm and Martin did. You understand? Mm-hmm. So since you're not gonna let that happen, let's have a griot. Let's have somebody that just tells stories. Let's do like Mark Twain. You feel me? So that's what I was doing. I was doing a Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn moment. So what I did is I started taking toilets. And I started taking toilets and decorating the toilets and putting different issues on the toilet, different social issues on the toilet. Mass incarceration, homelessness, foreclosures, things of that nature. And I would take the toilet and I would put it in my restaurant. As soon as you come in the door, the toilet would be sitting there. And you could sit there and it would be called Talking Shit with Shorty. You feel me?
I'm feeling
you
it.
You could say anything you want to say as long as it wasn't about your wife and your kids. If it had to do with a social issue or how you would change the world or make the world better. And the reason I call it Talking Shit with Shorty is because, see, a toilet is white.
Yeah.
A toilet is white. Most toilets, I don't care what you say. If you go over the world over, toilets is majority white. You get colored toilets here and there, right? But the majority of toilets are white. See, a toilet don't care if you black, white, straight, or gay. The toilet take your shit every day.
Yeah.
You feel me? So I'm just using this as a metaphor and as a prop in the art of conversation. But then people started paying attention when they would start seeing the toilet in these odd places and then start reading the toilet. So now if I got you sitting there talking with me, sitting next to the toilet, you get to talk about the issues that affect you. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I made my introduction into activism again. And I reinvented myself into activism in 2006. All right. I started a Shorty program and Governor O'Malley approved the program. Part of the program was policing the police. Part of the program was shadowing the government. Part of the program was building community farming. You know what I'm saying? Economic development. These were parts of the program. Governor O'Malley approved the program, but he didn't know that the program was watching him and his policing issues. You see what I'm saying? And by the time he found out, it was too late because I had been putting toilets all over the city, parole and probation, Congressman Cummings' office. And now these toilets are becoming an annoyance because people are paying attention to it. So I started calling the toilets, called it potty training politicians.
Wow.
All right. Now, granted, this is a Democratic state. I'm a Republican. I'm a black Republican, but I'm not a Donald Trump Republican. You feel me? I'm that 1863 Republican, the one that you freed from slavery. You feel me?
Yeah.
So they not feeling me in the Republican Party neither. But I'm also a caterer. I work for Michael Steele. I work for Bob Ehrlich, Kendall Ehrlich. That's the ex-governor of the state of Maryland. I work for O'Malley. I work for Kirk Smoke. I work for 85% of the richest people in the state. But I never signed a confidentiality report. That means the conversations that we had at these parties or the things that I heard at these parties, I can repeat. And you can't sue me for them.
Let me ask you a quick question. As a Republican, so when Donald Trump, the Republican, became president of the United States of America, was you pleased that a Republican was back in the White House?
Hell no. I'm a black Republican in name only. I'm a nomad in America. It don't matter if I'm a Democrat or a Republican. They don't care about black people. We are a common piece of property to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party because both parties are using mass incarcerations on the black community. It don't matter if Donald was in power or Obama was in power. Neither one of them did nothing to help the black community, but both of them kept mass incarceration going.
Do you feel that ex-president Barack Obama could have done more?
Hell yeah, he could have did more. President Obama from Chicago. He was an organizer in Chicago. He became famous for organizing in Chicago. Under Obama's administration, Chicago was left naked. When people elected Obama, we from Chicago, and I'm from Illinois, when he got elected, we thought, oh man, Obama gonna sit here and give us some jobs. He gonna help stop this war on drugs. He gonna do this, he gonna do that. He didn't do shit. Wow. Obama gave us the audacity of hope. And that's all we had. Just like you was waiting for Jesus, we didn't get him. He ain't came back yet. He gave us the audacity hope. And the reality of that hope is we still broke, we still enslaved, we still incarcerated, and we still leading the country in murder on black murders. And we leaving the country in black on black murders because you've created this social economic deprivation in our community. That's all we got. Start giving us jobs, start giving us education, start spending money on education like you spend it on incarceration, and you'll see things change. But if you destine our community for failure, then these are the results that you're going to get. And that's what we got. Nothing. So, your definition of institutionalized racism is what? My definition of institutionalized racism is Willie Lynch. The Willie Lynch letters. My definition of institutionalized racism is Dred Scott and the Dred Scott decision, where blacks in America have no rights in which white America has to respect, and they don't. If institutionalized racism didn't exist, then we wouldn't be dying in the streets the way we dying in the streets. We wouldn't be getting murdered at the rate that we getting murdered by police, unarmed, shot, choked, beaten, the way we getting beaten if institutionalized racism didn't exist. If you was killing white people, beating white people, or disrespecting white people the way you do in the black community, would this stuff still be going on in America? That speaks for itself. The institutionalized racism that exists is because the police were slave catchers in the 1800s. They were bounty hunters. Now they bounty hunters with badges, with hoods and body cameras, and they still doing the same thing that it was doing to us then. Instead of lynching us, you killing us with guns and bullets. You killing us with drugs. You killing us with depriving us our rights of self. Institutionalized slavery, institutionalized racism is because our economics have never been. We never got our 40 acres and a mule.
Is some of the positions that we find ourselves in as far as institutionalized racism is concerned, is some of that due to the label that we're prepared or we allow ourselves to wear? Is there anything that we could do to get ourselves out of that so that we're not constantly viewed in the way that we're viewed?
Here go one for you. You want to stop institutionalized racism? Give black people dual citizenship. Give them a homeland. Because part of the Willie Lynch letter was not having a homeland, not having an identity. Institutionalized racism is part of taking away your identity and your heritage. You feel me? So if you want to take away institutionalized racism, you want to take away racism, you got my DNA. Tell me where I come from and let me go back home. Give me my 40 acres and my mule and let me leave. Give me my 401ks. Give me my Social Security. Take black out of America and you won't have racism no more, will you?
Is that what you think that most people would want? Is that what you think is best for the black people of America? Is to be freed, sent back home?
It wouldn't be considered what most people want, or what have anybody asked that question. Marcus Garvey tried it back in the 1920s, and they sent Marcus Garvey to jail because he wanted to give black people a choice. Black people don't have a choice. Where's our homeland? South Carolina, North Carolina, wherever the slave ships came in? That's as far as our history take us. If I was an immigrant, I can go back to Syria. If I was I can go to Scotland. I can go to France. I can go anywhere because they have a history. They have a homeland. They have a choice. We don't.
So how do you go about putting yourself in a position where you do have a choice?
Ask our government to give us dual citizenship the way the Jews have dual citizenship in Jerusalem. About 5-10 years ago, they did wings over Israel. Well, if you had any Israeli blood in you, that you can have a homeland in Israel, they would resettle you. Do the same thing for black people. If you did that, I know people that's in jail right now that would leave America and not come back. And if they left America and wouldn't come back, then you ain't got no recidivism, do you?
Absolutely.
You can't lock.
Here's the thing, Shorty. Institutionalized racism has showed its head up in many areas in the United States of America, but none so much than the judicial system. Why is it that so many black people find themselves failed by the judicial system?
Because the judicial system is their key. Remember what I said, Republicans and Democrats share that? The judicial system is slavery. 13th Amendment, that's the only thing that could re-enslave you. So they use that. And they use it with the discretion of the courts. All right, here you go. You're a black, you get charged with a crime, right? You get charged with a crime. It don't matter if you say that you did it or you didn't do it. The state take it in front of a grand jury, correct?
Yep.
And the state, only the state gets to go in front of the grand jury. You feel me? So if the state's the only one to go in front of the grand jury, who the grand jury gonna believe? So now I got an indictment. I can keep you in jail for 120 days. Now you got to defend yourself. You're guilty until proven innocent under America's judicial system if you black in America. Okay? Because if you went in front of the grand jury at the time that that state's attorney went to get to the indictment, and I got to go in front of the grand jury at the same time, that means that I get to dispute your charges against me. And I can present evidence to show my innocence. So that means that you wouldn't get the indictment and I wouldn't go to jail, correct?
Yep, correct.
So now if I got that, that means that we got equal justice, correct?
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling you.
So we don't have equal justice because we don't have access to the court. Remember the case down in the policeman that killed the black young man down in East St. Louis or whatever, when they said he charged a police officer.
Yeah, I do remember. I can't remember his name, but I know who you're on about. We featured that last year.
In that case, they dismissed the charges on that officer because he got to speak to the grand jury.
And one of the most disappointing things that we've seen throughout, especially the last 2 years on this show, is the amount of cases where police officers have gone or been charged with the unlawful killing or shooting of an innocent, unarmed young black man or woman or child, and no further action taken, no conviction, no guilty, found to be in use of reasonable force. How do you justify reasonable force when they are unarmed, innocent, and not in pursuit of a criminal activity?
What part of Dred Scott don't you understand?
I just need you to explain it to our listeners for us.
Dred Scott says blacks have no rights in which white people have respect. That was approved by Justice Towning. That was his decision. That's in the Supreme Court. Now, that is like an unwritten law. And if you look at that, that proves the hypothesis of that proves that law. I can kill you. I can murder you. I can do anything I want to you as long as you black. Here goes a prime example. They just charged those black officers that killed that white boy down in Texas that shot him when they was chasing their father. Right?
Yeah.
But they didn't indict the white officers that shot the little black boy in Ohio that was playing with a BB gun. Yeah. But in white America, they have guns. Their kids at 13 have guns bigger than them, and they don't shoot their kids when they're playing with guns, do they?
No.
So let's go back again. Institutionalized racism is permitting these things to happen. That's part of institutionalized racism, is to not protect black people. Period. And the only way that you're going to change is if you start taking them to court and holding them accountable. You got to start going back like Thurgood Marshall. We need some Thurgood Marshalls. You know what I'm saying? We need some people that's going to take our cases to the Supreme Court and not leave it in regular state and state court. We need to go directly to the Supreme Court. If a little white boy can go to the Supreme Court because he's a transgender Boy Scout, and we got to change the laws about the Boy Scouts, then why can't we do the same thing about prison and mass incarceration?
We have when we started off the show, we were talking about this war on drugs in particular. And while African Americans comprise of 13% of the U.S. population and 14% of monthly drug users, they are 37% of the people arrested for drug offenses. And that was from a 2009 congressional testimony by Mike Morrow of the Sentencing Project. Is the war on drugs solely directed at black youth or black people in general?
Yes. It's for blacks, Hispanics, and poor whites. Poor whites, okay?
And the poor whites normally live in black ghettos, right?
Black communities, or you dating a black guy, you have some relationship to somebody other than your pure race. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna tell me, here go a prime example: war on drugs in the black community versus the white community. Hell's Angels been selling drugs since they came from Vietnam. Very well documented. Documentary about what they do, right?
Right.
Documentary about Hell's Angels, about all the drugs and the sex and the rock and roll. But you don't see a whole lot of them going to jail or staying in jail or getting life sentences. They in and out of jail like it's a passport or a badge of honor. I get caught with a nickel bag of weed, I got 20 years.
At least.
You feel me?
Here's, for me, an additional observation, moving down to number 2, is that you also have a high rate of blacks and Latinos who are stopped and searched. That's another reinforcement of institutionalized racism, yeah?
Yeah, because if you stop and search and you degrade me, you intimidate me, you create that fear, then you got that control. Again, we go back to the Stockholm Syndrome. How's the best way to control your person? You know what I'm saying? So that fear, that intimidation, or that anger, which one's gonna come out? You feel me? So it's a mental thing. I stop and frisk you, I make you take your clothes off, I degrade you, I do all that to you. Am I gonna want to go down to this Inner Harbor, or am I gonna want to go to these white areas? Am I gonna want to go to the Magnificent Mile if I got to worry about you doing this to me in front of my date? Or doing this to me? It's designed to keep blacks out of certain areas, and plus to keep blacks and Hispanics in check, to let them know who's the popular in the community and who's not. It displays more of power and the exertion of power than the law. We've
just got one problem coming over the line at the minute, Shorty. I just want to bring to your attention. the notifications on your phone is giving a honking noise continuously. I'm not sure if you can turn that off somehow while still maintaining your volume, but if you can find a way to do that, we could really appreciate that, because we've just got this constant honking noise every time you get a text message or whatever it is that's coming through on your phone.
All right, I'm gonna try to cut my thing off.
Okay. I mean, I've got an iPhone, and I just turn my sound button off, and that means.
Can you still hear?
Well, I can still hear you.
All right. Well, I muted everything else.
Okay. Hopefully that shouldn't come through anymore. But yeah, we had issues here in the UK, particularly, where we would be strip searched even on the street, and police could just come and stop us and ask us to literally just start stripping us in the middle of the street and searching for our clothes and making us remove our garments, our clothes, right there on the streets, with no privacy whatsoever. And that got outlawed. Are they still able to strip search you in public in America?
They outlawed it. They say it's outlawed, but they still do it.
But how is how is that permissible if it's outlawed?
They do it because ain't nobody gonna hold them accountable. The state's attorney ain't gonna prosecute no police.
And so therefore, even when acting outside of the law, police are not afraid of acting outside of the law because there is no accountability.
No, they ain't accountable. They ain't scared. How many police have been, like you said, with your data and your statistics in front of you? How many police have been prosecuted in America since Rodney King?
Very few. I've not got that stats up in front of me, but what I will tell you is that I know there's a very, very few.
So, how many cases have you had of stop and frisk and all these erratic behaviors of these police officers?
Thousands, hundreds of thousands.
So, do they really care?
No, absolutely not.
And their actions speak for themselves.
But at the same time, we talk about this hope that we need to have, this hope that we need to instill in our communities. We need to be able to remove that fear that allows us to live some sort of a life, right?
Then that's why we got to start taking control of the narrative and the conversation. That's why we got to take these iPhones and these Galaxy 8s and all these things that we have and start filming, start fighting back the best way we can, organizing, boycotting. You got to put your activism into action. It's just like prayer. A prayer ain't nothing if you don't put no work behind the prayer.
Absolutely.
It's just empty. So if you don't put no act behind activism, then what is you really doing? Just acting?
I would imagine that's all you're doing is acting. I struggle to see how police can still continue to get away with the lawlessness, the unlawful way in which they conduct themselves. And we've had some pretty dreadful cases to report on here on this show, and we still struggle to find why there is no accountability, why there are no consequences for those, because we're fully aware that we've only got a step, an inch out of line, and we're in trouble, right?
Yeah, you don't even have to step out of line. If he had a bad day with his girlfriend or his wife, if he feel like something else is bothering him, he's going to take it out on the first person he see or the first person he figure he can get away with. In Maryland, they got the Policeman's Bill of Rights. That what protects the police officers here in the state of Maryland. It gives the police officers 10 days before they have to give their testimony of the occurrence that they were involved. Give the police officers 10 days before they have to say anything. But if you or I got arrested or charged with anything, we have to give our statement within that 24-hour time period. You know what I'm saying?
It also gives them 10 days to get their story right.
To get their lie right.
Yeah. I'd kind of agree with that. So,
and then let's go one step further. You just, like you said, Donald Trump, the Republican, you just seen in his first 100 days, he reinforced laws that help the police and protect the police. So if he wants to pass a law that if you kill a police, you get the death penalty or that things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So if you get the death penalty for killing a police officer, What does the police officer get for killing an unarmed black person?
Yeah.
I didn't hear him talking about that. Who's going to protect the people from the police when he was elected to protect the people, not the police? He was elected to protect the citizens of the United States. That's what presidency is for. That's what holding office is for. It's not to reinforce the military. It's not to reinforce the police department to create a tyranny type situation. He's supposed to protect the people. So where in his first 100 days has he administered any legislation that's going to protect black people in America?
The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, indicated on Tuesday that the federal government would back away from monitoring troubled police departments, which was a central strategy of the Obama administration to force accountability onto local law enforcement amid rising racial tensions. That's just a report that I'm reading now. Producer Teresa, wonderful that she is, has just sent me. So, how do you feel that even amidst of all of what we're seeing?
Remember those videos that I've been sending to your page when you first introduced yourself to me and you was interested in me? Yeah. Remember that video I sent you with Jeff Sessions' name on it?
Yep.
I went to the Senate. I went to the Congress. I knocked on everybody's door. I knocked on Jeff Sessions' door back in 2008. Okay? And they refused to talk to me. Jeff Sessions don't care about black people. Most of the Senate congressmen.
He said, and I'm afraid we've done some of that, so we're going to try and pull back on this, and I don't think it's wrong or mean or insensitive to civil rights or human rights. That's what he said.
You don't care. I know what he said, but his actions speak for themselves. He's following Donald Trump's lead. Let's make America great again. Let's make America hate again. And that's what he's doing. He's reinforcing hate. By reinforcing the police department, that's just like reinforcing slave catchers. That means that you can kill. That means you can kill unabated. That means that they're going to defend the police before they defend the people. And the Attorney General and the President office is supposed to defend the people, not the government.
Here's the thing. How far of a setback is this Donald Trump being made president going to be on race relations across the world?
Yeah, it already said it back when he started up. He made America hate again. He started appealing to low, uneducated, white people in different rural areas, and he had rich white people that wanted to keep white alive. They realized that in another 30 years, they're going to be the minority in this country, and they want to keep a hold of power. That's why you heard the other congressman talking about start having more babies, start making more white people. You know what I'm saying?
You know,
they losing their whiteness. They got to fight for it. The only way they can fight for it is to hold it through the courts and to hold it through the seats of power. All right, here go another history lesson for you. Back in the 1800s, when blacks were freed from slavery, and it was permitted to hold office, blacks held Senate and the Congress. I mean, the majority of those seats were black people because the way it was done is because it went to you were assigned seats by how many people you had in your district, right?
Yeah.
And since black people were the majority of the people in the districts, you were counted 3/5 of a man, but we still won no seats. You feel me? So now you had to implement Jim Crow laws that would deny you access to holding office, loitering, different Jim Crow laws. Looking at white people, they would just lock you up for anything, and then that would deny you that. So they switched the powers over in the Senate and the Congress, and then in the Senate and the Congress became majority of white people writing these laws. So if the Senate and the Congress was white and ain't no black people in there, who are gonna fight for black people? It ain't nobody doing it. And nobody did it. Who wrote the Constitution? Not one black finger signed that piece of paper. So it wasn't intended to protect us. And that's what we live in by the Constitution. The Constitution was invented to protect white power and white privilege.
And one of the easiest ways that they can maintain that is to keep black folk in jail.
Exactly. You keep me in jail. You keep where you can, the threat of locking me up, the fear, the intimidation. Ain't that what was going on during Birth of a Nation? Remember Birth of a Nation, the movie?
Yeah, I remember it.
They made that movie in 1921 and it was debuted at the White House. President Taft debuted it. So they condone rape. They condone murder. They condone lynching in the White House. You understand? That was mentality.
Systematic.
Yes.
You know, with the prison services here in the UK, especially back in the 70s and the 80s, it was predominantly filled with young black men from the breadth and the width of this country. What is the age differences between those that are being imprisoned today? Are they still the younger, or are they?
Yeah, they going younger. They going down to 14, 15 years old. They've even done studies where they've done studies here in America where they are calculating first graders and kindergartners who's gonna go to jail and who ain't. So that's like weeding out of farmers. You know what I'm saying? They already projecting who's gonna fill your prisons. So that's an industry here, just the way slavery. We traded the penitentiary for the plantation, cotton for cocaine, and we steal the cash crop. That ain't no other way of putting it.
And it just kind of makes you wonder how crack cocaine became prolific in every ghetto community around the world, right?
Crack cocaine wasn't just in the black community. White people like crack too. Yeah. They just wouldn't send white people to jail.
Yeah.
White people got meth. You hear about methadone and methadone clinics and meth. You don't see no high. I don't see a whole lot of white people going to jail. I see them getting treatment.
And there lies a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Because meth ain't predominantly a black used drug.
No, it's not.
So,
but it's predominantly white used drugs that can blow up houses and communities, and it's far dangerous, more dangerous than cocaine. But, you know, that's that white privilege.
Okay. Once arrested, blacks are more likely to remain in prison awaiting trial than whites.
Because of the bail system and the way the justice system is set up. I can't afford bail, so I'm going to... All right. Under the Constitution, it says cruel and unusual punishment. And under that cruel and unusual punishment lies bail and bond. If I can't afford to pay a bail, then they'll keep you locked up. But that's not how it's supposed to be done. That's just not the design of it. But then again, it was written by white people, right? White people knew that black people couldn't pay bail. What are you going to pay bail with if you don't own any property? What are you going to pay bail with if you don't have a job? When were these laws written? Timed and dated. That's why it was written. And that's why they use it now. If I got a case, I'm making $8.50 an hour. I get locked up for, I stole 2 pair of Nike shoes. My bond is $100,000, or my bond is $10,000, and I got to pay 10%. 10% of $10,000 is $1,000, right?
Right.
So where am I gonna get $1,000 at $8.50 an hour?
Yeah, I hear you.
There was a man that was locked up in the 1940s for a loaf of bread, and all he did was stole a loaf of bread to feed his family. They gave him 40 years. The loaf was only 40 cents. So where was the justice in that?
You know, for people of color, justice seems to be a very cruel word because it's not something that they often see.
It is. It's just us.
Yeah. You know, once arrested, 80% of the people in the criminal justice system get a public defender for their lawyer. And race plays a big role here as well. You stop in any urban courtroom and look at the color of people who are waiting for the public defenders. And even in the event of them having a very heroic one, they're very unlikely to find a verdict go their way either.
Here you go, 1986. Same year I was arrested in Illinois. In Chicago, Illinois, it was a thing called Operation Greylord. And Operation Greylord, it showed you that they were selling justice. All right? Mm-hmm. You had lawyers in the hallways that would take cases of people outside of public defenders. Like, say, if I had a gun case, in this case, I see that lawyer in the hallway, I give him $100, the case will go away. You feel me?
I'm feeling that. I mean, we only used to
So-
see that in movies. Did that really happen?
Operation Greylord, if you look it up, it's in Chicago. It happened in Chicago in 1986. I paid a lawyer to make my case go away that never even hit the books. I got caught in Chicago with $1,200 cash, 2 guns, going into the to one of the projects to purchase drugs. If they'd have caught me coming out, they'd have caught me dirty, but they caught me clean. The guns were registered and they belonged to me, but I didn't have a carry permit. They let me drive myself to jail.
Wow.
I drove my car to jail so they wouldn't tow my car.
Do you know, this next fact, I do, well, I like it, but have a listen to this. African Americans are frequently illegally excluded from criminal jury service, according to a June 2010 study released by the Equal Justice Initiative. For example, in Houston County, Alabama, 8 out of 10 African Americans qualified for jury service have been struck by prosecutors from serving on death penalty cases.
Because most majority of death penalty cases involve black people.
What is your experience in witnessing how a jury is made up, even in a normal court of law?
In my own personal experiences, my 1986 case, the jury is supposed to be a jury of your peers. That means if you're a black defendant, you should have black jurists on your jury.
Correct.
And they don't do that. They cherry pick who they want on your jury, all right? And when they pick a majority of white people gonna go, they gonna do what they do. And it's just the way it is. And the records and the statistics and the data show it. All right, now in my 2011 case, I had a jury trial. And what I did with my jury trial, I fired my lawyer and I defended myself, and the state forced a public defender on me. They forced a public defender, but I took over my case. The Constitution says you have a right to a lawyer. The lawyer is supposed to aid and assist you. You're not supposed to aid your lawyer. And those are the key words, aid and assist you. So I took that lead and made him aid and assist me. So on my jury selection, they offered, majority of the people that they offered me were white. And there were few, maybe 5% were black. I think I might have got 2 blacks on the jury, but I tried to pick the majority of my jury was women. I tried to appeal to females. So I got to choose who I wanted on my jury. I got to try to make the demographics up. But most people, when I go into different courts and I witness courts, the majority of the juries are white. A majority of the jurors are uneducated white. They come in, they're working menial jobs. They're not like, I want to say they're not stockbrokers. Right. They're not Wall Street people. They're not lawyers or public. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're not in that nature. They're more people that are struggling, just trying to make it. They're people that probably, some of the jurors been victimized by blacks, and they use that to get back at that case that they had or something like that. You know, there's a lot of things that factor into how they think. And you need to, when we get a chance and an opportunity to go to court, we need to start reading the laws and start using them to the best of our abilities instead of putting them in the hands of the public defender. If a public defender defends you and he loses 85% of his cases and he was in a natural law firm, he would be fired. So our public defenders are paid to lose cases. We might catch that heroic public defender that defends you with the due diligence of the law, but that's the key word, due diligence of the law versus the diligence of the law. You know what I'm saying?
And here's the thing: it's the judicial system, the district attorneys who are responsible for bringing cases. Most trials are rare, right? So most cases, only 3 to 5% of criminal cases actually go to trial. Most of them are actually plea bargained up front, right? And
Yeah.
and it appears that most African Americans would rather plead guilty and get a short sentence than take the risk of fighting for their innocence in the fear of getting a longer sentence.
There's two factors for that. One factor is waiting in the county jail and dealing with the stuff that you got to deal with in the county jail. You get so frustrated you'll be willing to go to prison just to get out of the county jail. That's one factor. All right. Number two is holding you in the county jail. It's the mental instability. It's holding you there for 1 and 2 years waiting to go to trial for a case. All right. Another factor is they'll give you 15 different charges and only 1 or 2 of them will stick. But then you'll get more time if they jam you up for the ones that didn't stick and you fighting them. They'll still send you down, and then you got to beat them on appeal. That's where it comes in at. And that's why they plead the cases out. It's called coercion. You're sitting in that jail cell and you just want to get out of there. You'll do anything to get out of there. And then later on, they'll bring those cases back on appeal. The same things that you're looking at on the statistics, look at the statistics and delve into the statistics on the appeals of those cases. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I pleaded guilty to my case in Illinois. And they said I threatened to blow up the Waukegan New Sun. I pleaded guilty, and then 3 days after I pleaded guilty, I took back my guilty plea and asked to have a new trial. I pleaded guilty because I wanted to get out of jail there. I took a physical before I went to jail. I wanted to show everything that was going on. I kept a jailhouse diary. I showed my weight, my loss of weight, the mental cruelty, I showed it all for 186 days. I was a borderline diabetic by the time I got finished, and I lost like 20 pounds. You feel me? So that goes into you pleading guilty too. Your mental capacity and your ability to withstand the tortures that they do there. They torture you in the county jail while you waiting to go to jail through solitary confinement, through the meals that they give you, the malnourishment, the unhealthy environment, the lack of natural air. You know what I'm saying? It's a torture. It's a mental torture. It's a physical torture. They beat you while you in jail sometimes. It's a lot of things that go on between you pleading guilty and you going to court. You know what I'm saying? They got people that have been murdered in jail waiting to go to trial. And that wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It just a lot of factors that factor into this. But at the bottom line, there is a lot of people pleading guilty. If we took these cases to court, we would win a lot of the cases. But then again, like I said before, if you give us access to the grand jury, 30% of the cases would never reach indictment. So that would cut down a lot too. And it would also empower the people to defend themselves better than what you got going on now.
So part of the reason why most of them don't go to trial is people actually don't have the confidence to believe that they will get a fair trial and be found innocent for something that they know they didn't do. And
Yep.
they are prepared to plead guilty and go to prison on a shorter sentence, even though they know they haven't committed the crime.
Yes. We got a guy here named Keith Davis, was found innocent of these charges that the state gave him. Was found innocent by the jury, but they charged him on a parole violation because he was in the vicinity of a gun that he didn't even own or touch or possess. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So that catch 22, even though you innocent or found innocent, and now they charge him with a murder that he didn't commit, but he's still sitting in jail with a bullet in his neck from the police that shot him here in Baltimore City, and he's been sitting in jail for the last 2 years behind this. Found innocent. The police officers never gave a statement. They never found anything, no ballistics, nothing that ties him to this gun, nothing that ties him to these murders. And it's just been a large miscarriage of justice in how the state abuses their powers of discretion when they want to go after an individual. You understand?
What is the difference, do you think? Have you seen? Is there any? And this is not off any statistics. This is just off the cuff here. It's a thought process. What is the difference in the way that police handle black on white crime and black on black crime?
A big difference. They'll come up into a situation when it's a black on white or black and white, and they'll off the cuff think that the black person was the perpetrator. They never come there thinking that the white person was the perpetrator. That's number one. Number two, if it's black on black, it's not giving that a whole lot of attention. If I call the police on Greenmount Avenue, I'm not going to get the response I would get in Roland Park or Charles Village or Johns Hopkins University. I'm not going to get the same treatment. I'm not going to get the same respect. They're not going to tell me to pull. They're not going to tell a white guy to pull his pants down or strip and search him versus them stripping and searching me.
What about when it goes to courts? What is the difference? What is the difference in the way that they're handled and sentenced?
When I go to court, all right, here goes a prime example. There was a guy that his name is Michael Alport. He was charged with terrorism. He called in a bomb threat to the Mundelein High School in Lake County, Illinois. His bond was $10,000. His father paid his bond, and then he violated his bond by smoking marijuana, and then he got a third bond, and then he got probation for the crime. That's just one example. Now here it is. I get charged with the same thing, but I didn't never do nothing. I never did it. You gave me no bond, no bail. You feel me? You gave him that white privilege, and you gave him a pass, even though he committed the crime, versus me not committing the crime, but you want to stick to your white lie and crucify that black man. You feel me? Because they control the courts and control the courts, they can control the outcome of most cases. If I had a paid lawyer, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But then I'd have been broke paying for something I didn't do. It's just like the bond industry. If I pay bail to get out of jail, I still got to pay that bailsman that money if I was found innocent. You feel me?
What is the biggest problem for you in overcoming the apparent institutionalized racism that you face as you see day to day? What is the biggest problem for you individually?
Our biggest problem for me individually is the courts, because it's our denial of our access to the courts. You can lock us up for anything, but then we can't charge you or access the court to do the same to you. Our legislators don't defend us. Our senators and our congressmen don't do what they were supposed to do when they got elected in the office. They don't defend our communities. They don't look out for our communities. That's my biggest problem, is our representation and our representatives.
And obviously, adding to that is the fear and confusion that a community faces when dealing with the police in any category.
Well, dealing with the police here in Baltimore, people are extremely fearful. And the ones that aren't fearful are showing up in their activism and the things that they're doing, which is a good thing, because we got a lot of people here in Baltimore that are using their white privilege to stand up for black issues. And that's another thing that we really need a lot more of, like you were talking about earlier. We need more white people to stand up against racism. We need them to not be silent when these issues occur. We need them to speak up and put skin in the game.
Do you know the funniest thing is, especially here in the UK, the biggest battlers for equality in this country, the largest amount of protesters, those that have taken to the streets and taken the argument into the realms of the politicians, have mainly been white.
Yeah, it's the same thing here. There's a thing about America. All right, you got proactive activism and you got reactive activism. What you got with the Freddie Gray case was reactive activism. Yeah. It wasn't a riot. It wasn't an uprising. It was reactive activism, because they got to the point where they got tired of being oppressed and kettled up and treated like shit. So now they reacted to the situation. Now, the marches that you see in the streets and all that with all the white people, that's what you call proactive activism. And black people are not proactive. We are reactive.
And part of that is our biggest downfall as well, right? Because
yes,
they only see us when we're angry.
And that's what they want to see. That's when they control the narrative. That's why they can do what they did. Oh, that angry black man. They can demonize that black community because of that moment of anger. But that moment of anger came because you created that moment of anger. You created this environment, and this is the result of the environment you created. And this is what you want to show. Well, let's show what created this. Let's go to step 1 instead of going straight to step 38.
What peaceful organizations? What organizations are running through? Even Baltimore. I know there's some in Chicago, and there are some in other states across America. But what organizations are really building the peaceful protesting route to fighting against this institutionalized racism that you guys find yourself fighting with?
I'm the founder of Baltimore Block. That's a organization here in Baltimore, Maryland. You can Google it. We do a lot of police brutality, and we do a lot of organizing for civil defense and defending yourself. We do actions of that nature. I'm also with housing our neighbors, a homeless group. There's a Indivisible Baltimore. There's a Baltimore Uprise. There's a lot of organizations that are doing nonviolent things to bring the community together. No Boundaries Coalition with Ray Kelly. Shelly's Helping Hands. We're doing good things in the community, but then again, the media is not going to show those things.
But
You're not going to see.
But what they will show is Black Lives Matter, especially the aggressive, progressive demonstrations, right?
Yeah, they'll show Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter, it goes deeper than that. Black Lives Matter came from a moment. We got people that have been doing work before Black Lives Matter came into effect that are ignored, and the results of the work is ignored or overlooked. And those are the people that we need to showcase and focus on. We got a lot of things that we call it the good in the hood. We hashtag it the good in the hood. Long before Black Lives Matter came up. And these are things that we were doing in the community that were positive things that the media wouldn't show, that they need to see. I've joined up with Black Lives Matter on a couple occasions. Last year during the mayor's conference, when they had the mayor's conference in Washington, D.C., and Black Lives Matter shut that down. Mm-hmm. If you heard the voice in the crowd, that was me talking about let them speak. And then when Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake was up there, and you heard me say, "You know who I am," that was me up in there. So I support Black Lives Matter from time to time, but I put them behind the other organizations that are doing the work, like the Baltimore.
Has Black Lives Matter turned a lot of pro-black supporters against the work that's been done against institutionalized racism?
I got a double-edged sword with Black Lives Matter. Some work with some of the people that I know personally is positive work, but some people that do work with Black Lives Matter, like DeRay McKenzie, I don't support it. He claimed to be from Baltimore. I ain't seen him in Baltimore, and I've been here for 20 years. I've been in all kind of circles in Baltimore. I ain't never heard of him. He came here to Baltimore, got like $250,000 in less than 30 days on campaign money. Got the money from outside of Baltimore. Who financed Black Lives Matter? Somebody told me it was George Soros. You know what I'm saying? And whoever owns you controls you. So I got an issue. If you're an activist and you're an activist program, who's financing you or how are you getting your money? That's gonna tell me something about you. You understand? The ACLU, the NAACP, they've been in existence for the longest. They've been raising millions and millions of dollars, but they're not doing nothing that they should be doing in the community. You might hear about them saving a case here and a case here, but they should be doing the things that they're doing with the money that they get on a wider scale. There should be more people that they freeing than what they're doing. I got a problem with that. Black Lives Matter, like I said, I'm on the fence with them. I want to know who financing them. I know DeRay McKenzie. I rise him every time I see him. When Freddie Gray got murdered, by the Baltimore City Police Department, you had a lot of activism popping up. They were self-serving demigods. The activism that they came to be, they were doing it for show, for HBO. They was doing it for fame, for that 5 minutes of fame, Geraldo Rivera or whatever. You know what I'm saying? The real activists in Baltimore are still doing the work. They was doing the work before Freddie Gray, they doing the work during Freddie Gray, and they still doing the work today. Show me all these activists that were on TV during the Freddie Gray moment. Show me where they are now, what they're doing in the community now, what communities are they serving. So were they really activists or were they self-serving demigods? You feel me? And that's a distinction in the activism world that causes a lot of confusions other than Black Lives Matter. So what
really defines them? What really draws the line is those that only come out onto the streets when the cameras are out, and those that are out there working on the community on a day-to-day basis, right?
The ones that's out there on a day-to-day basis, just not when it's convenient or the cameras come out. That's CNN in town and want to be on TV and hey this, hey that. No, what work were you doing before CNN came? What work were you doing? What work have you been doing since they've been gone? What have you been doing since Freddie Gray was murdered? You feel me? And a lot of people can't.
Tell me about some of the things that you do with the homeless, Shorty.
Oh, I've been feeding the homeless for like forever. Ever since I opened up my business in 1997, I feed them like 2 or 3 times a month. I feed them in Washington, D.C., and I feed them in Baltimore. And then once a year, I do a mass feeding in Baltimore City at St. Vincent de Paul. I also do a thing called Books and Barbecue where me and this lady named Jennifer Francis, she owns Best the Book Bus. Her name is Jennifer Francis. If you Google her, you'll see the work that she does. She has a book bus, and she goes across the country giving away free books to kids across the country. So I met her in 2008, and she found it hard to engage in people in Baltimore because they didn't understand what free was. They was skeptical. So in 2008, we started a thing called Books and Barbecue. And me and Jennifer would give out free plates of food and free books to people that would come to our events. It didn't cost you nothing. It didn't cost you a nickel or a dime. And we've been doing that since 2008, continuously. I've been feeding the homeless since like 1997. I do a lot of things in the community, and we do it without any work or we do it without any government funding or financing from any organizations. We do it out of the kindness and the contributions from the people that are involved in the situation. We call it like potluck activism. If we need money for an event, we'll raise the money for the event. We do a lot of fundraising. We do grassroots the way it is. I'd rather have 1 million friends than $1 million. You feel me?
That kind of works for me.
And that's how we work our activism, through 1 million friends. And I don't need 1 million people to march. I need 1 million people to pay attention to this podcast. You feel me?
I'm liking that. We could do it 1 million people, but for me, most importantly, is to just get that message out there.
That's what I'm saying. If we get 1 million people to pay attention, and we get 1 million people, we might get 10% that might want to start changing. We might get whatever we get, but if we get that 1 million, we can get them thinking, and we can get them to make that change, to be that change.
And we've got to be the change that we want to see wherever we are in our community, right? We've got to lead by example.
I definitely am. You can't. I've not committed any crime. I came here straight out of the penitentiary from the state of Illinois in 1991. I have not committed any crimes in this state. But because of my activism, I've been charged with 1, 2, 3. I've been charged with over 7 or 8 different crimes. I even been charged with the murder of a man named Scott Greenberg. They charged me with the murder of a man named Scott Greenberg. I videotaped the phone call from the detective. I put it on a videotape. I put it on a DVD, and I sent it into the state's attorney, and I sent it into the police. And I haven't been bothered since. It's the power that they got that we got to overcome.
But you've managed to amass yourself a great deal of knowledge and information, confidence, and an approach that irrespective of how much they come after you, you're able to represent yourself in such a way that they can't get by you. So how do we instill that in the hearts and minds of others, that they too can have that confidence and strength?
Remember I told you the Shorty program?
Yeah.
The self-help organization for the redevelopment and re-education of the young? That program, anybody can be shorty.
Yeah.
That's why I made the program. Anybody can do what I do. I lead by example. If you see me do it, I'm not going to never ask nobody to do nothing I ain't never did. You feel me? I've led marches in Baltimore City that you can go and look at. I've led marches in the Inner Harbor where nobody has ever led marches at. I went into their comfort zone where they make their money at to show you that you don't have to be scared of me. They've been living off of that fear for too long. So let's start changing that fear into acceptance and to understanding. You feel me?
I'm feeling you. Now, so we've looked at the institutionalized racism as it imposes itself on black men in particular who go to prison. But institutionalized racism has just a bigger impact on them when they leave prison, right?
Yeah, because now it's like slavery. If I was a runaway slave, they mark you with a runaway mark, right? So now I've been in the prison and you mark me with the prison on my back. I can't get exonerated of these charges. If I go for a job on my application, you said I've been to jail. Now you want to know what I went to jail for or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You want to know all these different things. So are you going to hire me if I went to jail for this? Are you going to hire? You know, those are reasons and barriers that we got to overcome. You're not going to hire me. You're going to keep me at $8.50 an hour. How can I support my family at $8.50 an hour? How can I take care of my kids? You know what I'm saying? So now you're destining me to go back to my life of crime because it was easier for me to be a criminal than it is for me to be a legitimate citizen. It's hard to do right. It's easy to do wrong. So that's part of the Shorty program too. It might be hard to it might be hard to do right, but you can live longer. It might be hard to do right, but you're not going to go to jail. You feel me? It might be hard to do right, but that's what you got to do if you want to survive in this world. Because if you do wrong, you're going back to jail. If you do wrong, you're going to end up dead. There's no 401k in doing wrong. There's no retirement plan in doing wrong. The retirement plan is them. We traded the penitentiary for the plantation, cotton for cocaine. That's the retirement plan. We still in the penitentiary stage.
And so therefore, it's a battle of the mind that's going to get us out of that penitentiary state of mind, right? Is it a battle of the mind?
I can't hear you.
Is it a battle of the mind that's going to get us out of the penitentiary state?
You got to have your mind right. If you go to jail, it's set up to break you, to make you. It's a mental thing when you go to jail, very mental. There are the food, the water, the isolation, the contact with your family. Look at Chicago. Most of their penitentiaries is in Southern Illinois, so you can't go see your people and your family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You break off that family.
You're ostracized. You're kept apart, right?
Exactly. You done that, and then they got the circuit where now they ain't even leaving you in jail in the state that you get locked up in. They sending you across the country.
I mean, here in the UK, you're normally you're sentenced to a prison near your locality, and you know I was quite fortunate. When I say fortunate, that's a misrepresentation. Really, we've got about 3 or 4 prisons in the area where I'm from in London. But it was only really 2 of them that I ever went to, and one in particular that I went to more times other than, you know. But you went to somewhere that was local, and, you know, but in America, you don't do it. They can send you absolutely anywhere.
Yeah, and that's where it keeps you institutionalized, because you catch another charge in there. You take somebody from Chicago, you send them to Philadelphia, so now you're going to have gang issues or city issues, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they do that intentionally. Look at Jeff Fort and Hoover that been in jail all their life. You know what I'm saying? That ain't right. Look at Madu Abu Jamal that's been in jail all his life for crimes he didn't commit. You know what I'm saying? They set this up for the mental health of the community, because we out here fighting for these people, and then they inside fighting to get out. And you set this system up with that. When you're in, it's like a whole nother world. There are no laws, no rules, no regulations. Even though they're there on paper, who's there to make sure that they're implemented? Who's there to make sure that you do the right thing? You know what I'm saying? Who's holding those people inside of the jails accountable?
What is it that you think they are so fundamentally afraid of that they refuse to allow the black race to exist on an equal level.
You seen Planet of the Apes?
It's got to be a bit more to it than that. Come on.
No. Here you go. Darwin's theory of evolution. When did man become racist toward his fellow man?
Racism isn't something that you're born with. It's something that you're taught.
That's my point. It's a learned behavior.
Absolutely.
So when did this evolve? All right, here goes another one for you. I might be saying it wrong, but it's called the analogy of a cave or anthology of a cave. All right, it's a Plato's theory of the Republic or somewhere into that era of thought of mental thought. All right. I took this class in college when I was just got out of jail at the University of Wisconsin, and part of this class there was this thing called analogy of a cave or whatever with a cave, and some of your listeners might know what I'm talking about. But if you took 1,000 people that were inside of a cave and all they seen were shadows in that cave, you know what I'm saying? All you seen was shadows. You never seen a tree. You never seen a bird. You never seen grass. You understand? Mm-hmm. All you seen was shadows. And all of a sudden, one person in that cave got free and got outside to see the sunshine, to smell the air, to taste the water, to see the fish, the birds that flew. The things that he seen in shadows were real. Is you as that individual, what's your responsibility? Are you supposed to go back into the cave and bring people out of the cave? Are you supposed to just enjoy the fruits of the world?
No, your job, your responsibility is to carry the message. You need to go back.
All right, so going back means that you're going to save your community, right?
That's correct.
But we got a lot of people that just want to enjoy the fruits of the world.
Absolutely, and I get that. I absolutely get that. I understand that.
Now here goes another one for you to understand.
But before you carry on, remember, there's many of our own that have come out and not come back to save the community.
Exactly. But they've done it for just various reasons, either fear or survival, or they just lost their compassion. And
some just for greed.
That's what I say, fear, or they lost their compassion. That greed, that loss of compassion is part of greed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now here goes another scenario for you. In America, they got projects, and the projects were done in like the 60s and the 50s and the 60s, and that was because of the great migration from the south to the north and the industrialization in the communities, all right? So they created the project. The project was a scientific experiment, and in that scientific experiment, that project, they had, it was set up like this. In the 60s, the scientific group took a thing of rats, and they put these rats into a maze. And then in the maze, they had different resources in different parts of the maze. You know what I'm saying? Food, water, shelter. But when the rats started making more babies and started making more rats, what do you think happened to the community? When you start taking resources away?
Well, they're going to suffer. They're going to starve. They're going to struggle.
They're going to eat each other.
Yeah.
So what's happening in that scenario from the 60s is happening now. This system that you see, the black on black crime, was designed from that project. You feel me? If you look at most major cities in Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, their major problems is food deserts. Their resources in the community. It's infrastructure. It's lead poisoning. You feel me?
And they didn't just do that in the projects of America. They did that all over the world. You come to the UK.
That's my point.
Black people were just put together in estates were built specifically to house them, to keep them away from the natives.
Now you go with the projects here in Baltimore City. They got a project called Latrobe Projects right over here off of Green Mountain, Madison. Now, right across the street from Latrobe Projects is the Baltimore County Detention Center. So if you grew up in the projects and you look at the Baltimore County Detention Center all your life, are you scared of jail?
No. You're already desensitized.
There you go. And if you look at most major projects, they look like minimum security joints minus the guards.
Absolutely.
They look like minimum security joints minus the guards and the dogs and the watchtowers. So now you desensitize me already. I'm already whatever. And then you go back to that question that you asked me, Why do they want to get out of the county jail and plead guilty? Because they're more comfortable in that environment in which they what?
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Make sense now?
Oh, it's always made sense to me, you know, Shorty. It's always made sense to me. I just could never understand why there were so many people that didn't get it.
Did I help break it down a little bit?
Oh, you broke it down.
Anybody been to the projects? All right, when they closed Cabrini Green projects in Chicago, Illinois,
they moved all the black people out of Chicago. The state of Wisconsin's prison industry skyrocketed because they gave vouchers and shit like that to people from Chicago. They gave them to in the West, Milwaukee, Kenosha, Racine, Madison. They gave them all the vouchers in Iowa because they wanted to redistribute the blacks out of Chicago into other areas. They thought they was going to be doing them a favor, but all it was doing was just setting them up for failure. I go into a community, they don't like black people, so what they going to do? You're going to watch you're going to be ostracized. The first time that you fuck up, you're going to get locked up. So now what you're doing, you're in a prison industry. Now it's projects and you got a son that been to jail. Your son can't come live with you when you get out of jail. All right? So now I don't have no housing. Now you're making me homeless after I get out of jail. So you creating this problem. I can't get food stamps when I get out of jail. So how am I supposed to eat? My first things when I get out of jail, I got to have food, shelter, and resources. You're denying me all that. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to go commit a crime and I'm going to go back to jail. So now we create a recidivism, correct?
And you've got prison systems that are full of recycled prisoners.
Thank you. You got grandfathers locked up with their grandsons, man. Ain't that slavery?
Same thing all over again.
You reinvented slavery under the 13th Amendment and you use the state's attorney's office to do it. Prosecutorial discretion is the key to the mass incarceration in America.
And prosecutorial misconduct is rife in black communities.
Yes. And nobody's holding them accountable. That's what I'm trying to, right now as we speak, I got papers into Governor Hogan, the Attorney General. I got papers in for my state's attorney, Scott Schellenberger, to be disbarred and charged criminally for kidnapping me and locking me up. I was kidnapped February the 7th, 2011 and charged with terrorism because I was making a movie about everything that we're talking about. They took my truck, my computer, and 8 years worth of videotapes and contracts and storyboards. I had 13 storyboards. They took all that. Now, at the conclusion of a trial, you're supposed to return the property to the defendant if the defendant was innocent. They took my truck, they impounded my truck, and they sold my truck. They made money off of my property. Then, that add insult to injury, if I was locked up and charged with terrorism, that means that you should have took my computer, everything that you found in my truck, and impounded it and put it into property for evidence locker. They did none of that.
Wow.
They didn't do none of that. I got paperwork that you would not believe. And that's why you've been seeing them videos when you've seen the congressmen and the senators when I be running up on them. Because, like I said, I am Dred Scott. Blacks have no rights in which white America respect it. I showed you that video with Jeff Sessions when I started this in 2000. And I said that in the halls of the Senate and the Congress. I go there now. They know me personally. They know me. I got a thing called the Wainwright Project where I'm pushing for accessing the grand jury by defendants. I want proactive actions in the court instead of aftercare actions. I don't like the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project want to work with you after you've been convicted or charged with a crime and let you out of jail and fight for you. I want to fight for you before you get into the system. I personally know Benny Starks and Juan Revere. If you go look up Benny Starks and Juan Revere, I was locked up with those two individuals. Those two individuals are free now because of the Innocence Project. I was locked up with them and had diary entries where when they was locked up, how the state's attorney was falsifying documents, twisting things, all right? And the same thing is going on now.
It never stopped, though, does it?
No. Institutionalized racism is just what you said, institutionalized. And then the only way you're going to break the institution is to take it to court and to keep exposing it. Call their name out. Every time they wrong, show them where they wrong, pull them up wherever you see them. Don't let them have a peaceful moment.
And it's because they are inhabited, they are found in the very infrastructure of our society.
Yes, they are. They're your judges, your lawyers, and your politicians. If you want to find the institutionalized racism, look at the money. Find the money. Who's contributing to these people's campaigns?
Follow the money.
Out the laundry. Start finding the money. Like I said, Operation Grey Lord. Use that as a blueprint, and you can shake out a lot of the corruption that's going on. You can shake out a lot of the institutionalized racism that's going on, because money perpetuates racism. It's used.
So our people need to start to learn to educate themselves, free themselves with knowledge, and where can they find this sort of help from?
They can educate themselves, become self-learning, start reading the law book, start reading things in articles. Don't just take somebody's video. Go research it. Do research. It don't hurt. If you can spend time on Instagram, Snapchat, and all that, spend an hour a day researching something that's important to you. Spend an hour a day researching and reading and finding the laws that support the things that you need to change. You got to find a position and stand strong behind it.
Institutionalized racism is explained as follows: any action, intentional or unintentional, that is based on race or skin color and that subordinates an individual or group based on skin color or race is racism. Racism can be enacted individually or institutionally. However, much of the scholarship on racial issues over the last 40 years have focused on individual racism. But the individual racism that these sites and statistics speak of is nurtured and provoked and prompted and fueled by the institutionalized racism that exists within our schools, our prisons, our politicians, and in all the decision-making mechanisms that govern our society, right?
You hit it right on the head. It's institutionalized racism, and the institution is the Constitution. The institution is the courts. That's the basis of it. It's institutionalized because those are the power structures that keep it going. Right?
We're getting very close to the end of the show. Where else do you want to take this before we go? We've got about 7 minutes left.
I want people to get more. I want people to get more involved. Do something for people other than yourself. Start looking out for the homeless, because that could be you. Start advocating for something that's important to you other than pets. People are more important than pets.
And is there any sites or websites or things that people can look for to follow the work that you're doing?
If you want to find the work that I'm doing, you can go to Facebook, Dwayne G. Davis. You'll see me with toilets. I use toilets as a canvas, and I use toilets to get the message out. The toilets are something that pisses them off, so I found their Achilles heel, so I run with it. I also use the toilets because they took a negative and turned it into a positive. If you ever seen the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin.
I love that movie. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that movie.
Remember he had the toilet?
Yeah.
I just support.
Yeah. And this.
Yeah. Well, see, my birth certificate says I'm white. It does. I was born in 1959. My mother was light-skinned and she could pass. Wow. And my mother into this hospital that only white people could be in. And when they found out that I was black, they had put white on my birth certificate because everything that my mother touched, I had to destroy. That's what institutionalized racism is.
That is exactly what it is. And you know, Shorty, Dwayne G. Davis, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure sharing this 2 hours with you, talking about institutionalized racism. And I look forward to mixing some more words with you in the future as we continue to stay in touch on Facebook and other social media platforms. I'll continue to follow and support your work. Please see this as an avenue, as a platform that you can use anytime you want to raise awareness on any issue. Consider this as the beginning of our journey and our relationship.
The same goes for me. You can use all my avenues. Everything that you get, I will tag, resend. We need an international following, because this is an international issue.
Absolutely.
The world is watching Baltimore, and they need to see what Baltimore really is. So I'm going to give it to them. And you know, I go raw, uncut. You know, I know everybody, and everybody know me. I ain't hard to find.
And then we'll look forward to finding you again. Dwayne, this is where we say goodbye. Thank you once again for joining us on Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. And we wish you luck, and we pray for all the things that you're going to do. And we just hope that the work that you continue to do has a positive impact on your community.
Thank you.
We're out of here.
Very much. All right.
Good gosh. 2 hours.
Already did my time. I paid
And if you don't know, you better get to know. Dwayne G. Davis is the name.
I paid for my crime.
Shorty to his friends. This has been another special edition on Issues Today.
I paid for my crime.
My name, Kervin Julian, on World Jam Global Radio.
For my crime.
Institutionalized racism.
I paid for my crime.
We're out of here.
Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Don't forget you can join me again next Saturday night. Sandra Rigobert.
What I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you.
Dyslexia awareness.
I was doing all kind of stupid shit.
Right here in the UK.
Sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's child.
Don't forget you can join me again tomorrow morning live, 8 till 10, for the Wake Up Everybody Sunday Gospel Show. It's where I do church before church.
Especially all you haters.
Because God is good.
Statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time. Paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time. Paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent. I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and thinking over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time, already did my time. I paid for my crime, already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison. Prison.
Well,